but I was terrified. Of course he was terrified.
I like an athlete that can perform under pressure, though, because, you know, some of these athletes get hired, they make a ton of money in the pros, actually, and then they disappoint you. When it push comes to shove, they don't show up, A-Rod. Anyway, so...
Yeah.
No animosity there.
Perhaps the only other impressive shot last night was Pete Hegseth's shot, or call, I should say, to go to the game.
Well, I got to go to the game. It was a last-minute thing with my boys and my dad. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, so we went to the game where the Final Four was. My kids were cheering for UVA. They wanted to see the game. Boy, they were nail-biting all the way down to the end. And so I stayed right till the end of the game, and then I jumped in a cab and came back over here.
Let us point out to our viewers, you were not planning to go to the game.
No, very last minute. And I just, you know, it's one of those moments. It's the Final Four. Kids are old enough to remember it. So it's like, let's take it in, and they did not disappoint.
They must have
been one
so
heck of a game.
They
were
That's
excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You were put on the spot. You bought tickets for your dad and two sons. And
I did. My bank account is not happy today.
Your son Gunnar says to you, Dad, I wish you were coming to the game.
He said, I wish you were coming to the game, Dad. And I was like, oh, man.
And what
I'm going to have to do this. So thank you, Delta Airlines. Thank you, Ticketmaster. And we made it happen. It was a ton of fun, and it was a great game. The final game will be on Monday night to see who wins the tournament.
Yeah, and just to recap, this was a game that looked like Auburn had it wrapped up, but then all of a sudden this turnaround, it's really...
I thought it was over. Then there was a foul call. He got 3 free throws, and boom. So, all right, well... That's the story on basketball. What's the story on the border?
The story's the border. And as we talked about yesterday, I interviewed President Trump out at Calexico, California. But, you know, the president was tweeting yesterday, and we'll put it up here. He was talking about the redeployment. Remember, he's pulling agents for that crisis. He says we have redeployed 750 agents at the southern border, specific ports of entry, in order to help with a large-scale surge of illegal immigrants trying to make their way into the United States. This will cause traffic and commercial delays until such time as Mexico is able to use. He continues, it's powerful common sense immigration laws to stop illegals from coming through Mexico into the U.S. and removing them back to their country of origin until Mexico cleans up this ridiculous and massive migration. We will be focusing on border security, not ports of entry. He's reacting to there are some lanes of traffic in the case of El Paso, where they're having to close lanes because of the number of CBP agents to process those. And so to keep it orderly, to keep it with as much integrity, border integrity as they can, they've had to narrow the lanes. It's causing a little bit of delay, but it's because, as I was earlier last week, Tuesday and Wednesday, we saw the CBP guys that would be on ports of entry in the field because of the unbelievable number of Central American families coming across the border. On that day, when I was with the CBP agents, more than 1,400 came across
in that sector.
750 agents. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard him. He's made the threat to Mexico, fix it in a year, or we will close the border. This is putting the squeeze to them. The reality is, if it's difficult to go back and forth in ports of entry, it's complicated, but neither side wants that. You got people coming into work, going to Mexico or to the United States. But ultimately, if those lines get long, people will get frustrated, and maybe you get to the point where Mexico starts to address their own problem. There's only so many levers as a commander-in-chief you can pull to address this crisis.
Yep.
Looks like he's trying to pull another one.
In the midst of his Democrats and the media are going crazy on social media over a comment that President Trump actually made in May of 2018 where he used the phrase animals.
Wait, a year ago?
Yeah. Yeah, he used the phrase animals, and what I kept seeing in my Twitter feed was that, you know, people were saying, oh, he was talking about asylum seekers. No, he actually wasn't talking about asylum seekers. He was responding to a question from a sheriff related to MS-13 gang members who, by the way, carve people up with machetes and stab and beat them. So
rape, kill, control, I believe, is their mantra. So this echoes around Twitter all day yesterday from a phrase from a year ago. This is how Democrats react to a non-new statement on Twitter. This is Kirsten Gillibrand saying, racist language like this has led to violence throughout world's history. No human being is an animal. We have to be better than this. Pete Buttigieg says, you do not refer to human beings as animals. You just don't. And Joy Reid of another network said asylum seekers aren't people, they are animals. This is particularly frightening language coming out of a person vested with the power of a presidential office.
Now listen to what he said, but keep in mind he is responding to a comment from a sheriff about MS-13 gang members. Take a listen.
We have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals.
The president saying people trying to come. Well, as we pointed out last week, an MS-13 member was apprehended on the border with a child, saying the way to get in the country is to bring a child. They're coming. They're coming.
It's just stunning to me, though. Like, just do an ounce of research. We're talking about gang members that beat people with clubs and carve them up. I mean, these are not, you cannot equate that and say, oh, we're talking about asylum-seeking children in order to disparage the president. This was an outrageous lapse in judgment from so many in the media, so many people who consider themselves, and sometimes you would consider respectable, not only using a clip from May 2018 as if it's new, but all of that time lapse. And you still didn't do the research.
That's exactly right. And an ounce of reporting, Griff, you know this, it's clear gang members have talked about it. Of course they use the caravans or they use distractions. So send these 150 migrants over there so we can get our 2 or 3 MS-13 guys over here. They've got a network. They use the coyotes. They exploit this chaos to benefit themselves. And who is harmed by that? Our communities that have MS-13 members.
There's a narrative, right, on the left, which is that animals isn't fair, that walls are racist. We'll see. So friends at FoxNews.com, let us know what you think,
especially about the media's portrayal of this and the distortion. Because you want to have a conversation about children at the border, let's have it, but don't distort the conversation to prove a political point.
Well, and let's have that conversation about the kids coming here. You asked that question about a second DACA generation. That's a very real question. And also, what is happening for these kids when they get here after 20 days when they're released?
Yeah.
Who's paying for school? Where they go? I mean, there's all the cascading effects of people here that you don't know where they're coming from. And as taxpayers, we're footing the bill for whatever happens next, because we're a very humane, loving, wonderful country, the greatest on earth. They're coming to this country for a reason. If we don't know why or in what manner, we're the ones left to deal with it.
Good point.
And it's not just the criminals; it's the whole cascading effect.
Well said.
Friends at FoxNews.com, let us know what you think.
And we're going to turn to some headlines for you, beginning with a Fox News alert. A Texas trooper is fighting for his life after being shot twice near the U.S.-Mexico border overnight. The officer is out of surgery, but in critical condition. Texas authorities say Victor Alejandro Godinez shot the trooper after running from a car crash. He is in custody. Police confirm he is a U.S. citizen. A Coachella worker falls to his death while setting up a stage for next weekend's music festival. The man was reportedly not wearing a safety harness when he fell 60 feet in California. Organizers say he's been part of the Coachella team for 20 years, and OSHA is investigating. A norovirus outbreak strikes a children's hospital in Washington, D.C. The HSC Pediatric Center confirms 3 patients tested positive. A staff memo says visitor restrictions are now in effect. Symptoms of norovirus include vomiting, abdominal pain, and fever. And those are your headlines.
All right, well, the 2020 Democratic field extending even more.
If you thought it couldn't get bigger, it did. Congressman Tim Ryan jumping in, that's saying in his announcement, now he's from Youngstown, or he's in Youngstown, Ohio when he makes this.
Yep.
Here is what he is saying about the flyover states and the voters that he thinks relate to him. Listen.
The flyover states are my states. The flyover states are your states, and the flyover states are going to start governing in the United States of America. Things go up and things go down. But if we're not united, we are not going to be able to fix these structural problems that we have in the United States. And I'm running for president to first and foremost try to bring this country back together. Because a divided country is a weak country. And we have politicians and leaders in America today that want to divide us.
Ooh, 14 Democrats running. Is anyone not running?
Well,
maybe that list would be shorter. Who's not running for the Democrats?
That's a good point. But this is one of the few so-called moderates. I mean, Tim Ryan's been on our show a bunch of times. Sure. We've interviewed him. Seems like a good guy. Kind of a Democrat of yesteryear. Yeah. The fumes of the blue dog Democrats. So he's saying Trump won because the forgotten voters in flyover states said, this is somebody who's finally advocating for me. he's trying to be a voice for that, but it doesn't feel like the modern Democrat Party is aligned with his voice at all.
Well, that's it. Look, Midwest rural voters, the Democrats completely lost them in the last election. That was proven in Trump's numbers. Now, Tim Ryan is seeing the rhetoric of the field of 13 before he got in, saying, oh my gosh, nobody is even appealing to, nobody's even trying to get him back. So what he's saying there about divided country, got to bring it together, it's not just seeing a path of centralism that Biden was taking. He sees a need to change the rhetoric to get those rural voters to believe again in the Democrat Party. He basically announced the most difficult job in politics anyone could imagine because Democrats have so abandoned those voters.
I feel like Democratic base is just not there. They're not interested in that. I mean,
the power's really on the coast. That's the problem.
Yeah, and they're hungry for the Bernie Sanders. They're hungry for the extremist language. That's just what's appealing right now. I don't think they're looking forward and saying, oh, let's pick the most electable candidate necessarily, or thinking about the fact that Hillary Clinton skipped a whole bunch of important states and made people feel like she wasn't paying attention to them at all. And that's one of the chief reasons that she lost. I don't know that that's on the forefront.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, you know, Congressman Ryan may have bitten off too much to chew, because what case do you make to that Midwest rural voter that, you know, deregulation was a good thing, that jobs is a good thing, and we're going to replace it with what the Democrat Party seems to be offering now, which is, you know, more Obamacare, socialism. I'm not sure he can even make that case.
Yeah, they used to be the party of the working class, unions, right? But they've sided with enviros, with climate change activists, way more than they have with workers who have been affected by that obsession with climate change. Trump resonated with that. And you can't, and then, oh, by the way, Hillary Clinton didn't go to Wisconsin. Which might have been like a decent idea.
She didn't go to it, and she didn't speak from a place of having an empathy for issues that were facing people in a lot of those states. No, that's just the reality.
You said, you know, those jobs are going away.
Yeah.
Good point.
Not a good move.
By the way, we were talking about MS-13. Well, this MS-13 member and convicted killer was already deported once. He was just captured in the U.S. again.
Our next guest says this highlights a huge flaw in our immigration system. A former ICE supervisor tells us how to fix it. Coming up next on this Sunday edition of Fox and Friends.
I think I finally found.
President Trump touring our southern border this week with immigration officials explaining just how many MS-13 gang members are getting across our border. Like convicted killer and MS-13 member William Humberto Martinez Chavez. You see him there. He was deported in 2017, but just last week, rearrested in New York on Long Island. So how are these dangerous gang members making it back into the U.S.? Jason Piccolo is a former ICE supervisor. He joins me now to weigh in. Jason, how are they getting back in?
Easy. It's a 2,000-mile-long border. They can sneak in any one of those porous areas, and they have their own hookups with the smuggling network. So they're using either the networks, and they're getting in. It's easy.
Jason, there is some debate over whether this is a significant problem or not. MS-13, brutal, vicious gang members trying to get into the U.S. How big is this problem?
Well, murder, rape, control. So even if they want, let's say, you know, they are pure evil. This isn't animalistic. This is evil. Now, if you try to get out of the gang, you can't. That's where the murder, rape, control comes in. So it is a significant problem. You know, one evil person coming across that border is one too many.
How dangerous, compared to any other threat coming across our border, how dangerous are these gang members? And it's not just MS-13, there are other ones.
Well, look, at any transnational gang has dangerous ties to it. It could be anything that has an effort with any illicit means, i.e. they're going to be smuggling, they're going to be smuggling narcotics, they're going to be doing anything. They are going to be dangerous. Now, MS-13 is a little bit different because once you're into that gang, you can't get out. They will kill you. And then anybody who comes over into their areas, they're going to maim or murder them as well. So there are a lot of innocent people getting killed. So let's say you do have one or two people coming across a border that are MS-13. How many families are they going to affect if they murder and rape, kill them?
Jason, on Friday on this show, we showed a Border Patrol agent had given us evidence of an MS-13 gang member using a child to get across, which we know is a challenge. How much is this gang trying to game our system?
They're using every means available. Now, you can watch every news and know how to game the system. It doesn't just have to be, you know, Fox News, MSNBC, anybody. We're telling them the tactics to use. Right now, they're saying, hey, you know what? If I could use an unaccompanied alien child, pick them up on the south side of the border and bring them across, then I will. Now, I know this for a fact because I worked for Obama's human smuggling cell, and we had bona fide males and females using little kids to come across the border.
I've only got a few seconds, but it seems that they're evolving to one official telling me that MS-13 even stopping tattooing themselves.
Yeah, why not? The white supremacists did that in the 90s. They stopped tattooing themselves. So who do you know is MS-13?
Yeah. Jason Piccolo, thank you very much. Have a good Sunday.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next hour, we hear from a former gang leader from Los Angeles who reveals the gang's strategy of using unaccompanied children to get across our southern border and into the U.S. You don't want to miss that. Plus, Yale being threatened with legal action from 2 senators over a policy blocking financial help for conservative Christian students. One of those outraged students joins us. That's coming up next.
Talk right now about these procedures. These are little babies.
I'm not going to apologize for doing a job that helps women in crisis.
Time now for News by the Numbers. First, over $10 million. That's how much the pro-life film Unplanned earned at the box office in its first week. The movie is about a former Planned Parenthood director who becomes a pro-life activist. Next, $100 million. That's how much revenue Maine could raise if it taxes Poland Spring for water. Lawmakers considering charging the water company 12 cents for each gallon it uses from the state's natural resources. Critics say it could force Poland Spring to scale back operations. And finally, 4 hours and 26 minutes. That's how much free time the average American has per week, according to a new survey. 4 in 10 Americans said they have even less than that. Jedediah?
Thanks, Griff. Well, Yale Law School under fire for a new policy that lawmakers say discriminates against religious students.
Senators Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley even threatening legal action against the school for what Cruz claims is intent to blacklist Christian organizations.
The new policy bars students, many with thousands of dollars in debt, from accessing Yale's loan repayment or fellowship programs if they work at an organization that considers religion, sexual orientation, or gender identity in its hiring practices.
Jasmine Stein is a Yale law student, and she joins us now. Jasmine, break this down for us. So if you're a student at Yale, you get an opportunity to do internships. The school will help you out with it. But if you choose an internship with a religious organization or Christian organization, that doesn't count.
Right. The new policy states that any student who opts to work for an organization that discriminates on the basis of religion, that student is barred from 3 forms of financial aid that the school provides. And what it means when it says discriminates on the basis of religion, that means that a Christian university that wants to hire only Christian faculty, a Muslim nonprofit, a Jewish charity, all of those organizations, students who work for them are now being penalized.
Now, they're saying, of course, Yale, that this violates, the reason is that it violates their anti-discrimination clauses if that organization discriminates in its hiring practices and has this delineation. So let me just read the statement from Yale. I want to get your reaction. They said, "We recently decided that the law school will require that any employment position it financially supports be open to all of our students. If an employer refuses to hire students because they are Christian, Black, veterans, or gay, we will not fund that position. We cherish and value all of our students, no matter whom they love, where they worship, or how they vote. That's why we cannot, consistent with our non-discrimination policy, subsidize employers who discriminate among them." So many would argue and say, okay, well, maybe this makes sense because this is an inclusive university, and they're worried that if an organization has these restrictive hiring policies discriminating against another student of theirs, that opens them to a legal issue. Could that happen?
I think what it's important to realize is that we can all agree that Yale Law School should treat all of its students equally. Yale, they can achieve that means very easily by simply putting in a clear exemption for religion-based organizations. So keep in place the protections on the basis of race, age, disability, but simply say that this policy does not apply to the hiring practices of religion-based organizations. This is a critical moment for Yale to decide whether or not it wants to remain an institution for education or whether it's going to become an institution of indoctrination. It's important that Yale reaffirms that it treats all of its students equally, that just because I'm a Christian on campus, that I'm not disfavored or barred from programs that my peers can have access to.
Exactly. You could say the issue of equality is you are free to choose. You're free to choose what organization you want to associate with and put your talents towards. Why not a religious organization?
No, exactly. I think what this policy does is it limits the choices available to students. That's all that it does. It doesn't afford people protections. It simply takes opportunities away from students. And it's difficult to overestimate the amount of funding at risk here. In 2018 alone, the law school provided $1.9 million for students that were pursuing the summer public interest fellowship funding. And that's just one of the 3 programs that religious students may no longer have access to simply because they want to work at an organization that reflects their deeply held religious beliefs.
So the idea is because one person might not be able to go there, say a Muslim who wanted to work for a Christian organization, no one can go work for that organization.
Yeah,
that's effectively what they're saying.
They're essentially saying you're free to choose. You can belong to any organization you want, but you cannot get the funding because it's in violation of our non-discrimination policy. Now, they've said on record that they will consider making an accommodation for religious groups. Do you have confidence in that?
I think what we've seen right now is a vague promise. I think it would be really important to get the language in place that says that there is an exemption for religion-based organizations. Given the context that this policy wasn't created in a vacuum, but was a concession to student demands to punish and condemn minority views, it makes it difficult for me to feel optimistic, but I think that would be a great step towards living up to their purported values of equality. It would be putting in place that language that exempts religious-based organizations.
I hear your point. I think it's going to be very challenging for them, though, to do that, given how their non-discrimination policy is written, because a religious organization is going to want to retain those rights to hire certain people and not hire certain people. So that's a conflict they're going to have to resolve. But
concessions to student demands, those don't always end well. Jasmine, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff.
Cats or dogs? We know how Pete feels about that debate. He's a cat guy.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But which pet owners are happier? I don't know. I actually have no idea. The results from a new poll coming up next.
Uh-oh. Woo!
Since the election, we've created more than 5.5 million new jobs, including 600,000 manufacturing jobs, things that nobody would have allowed me to say on the campaign trail. They would have said, oh, he exaggerates.
That was the president yesterday. Well, many in the media claiming for months that our economy was probably headed for a decline. There's no way the good times could keep rolling, but did a solid March jobs report just reject that narrative?
Susan Lee with Fox Business joins us now to explain. Welcome, Susan.
Good morning to you on this Sunday. I would agree. I mean, look at the wage growth that we saw. We haven't seen 3% wage growth in a decade. So congratulations, Americans. You are earning basically the average we've seen in 30 years, finally, after 10 years of not seeing it. And people say that the jobs market is so tight, so strong, we might even get to 4% wage growth, which is great for Americans because that's so much higher than how much faster inflation is, which is how prices go up, right? So if you're making more than prices are going up, you're feeling wealthier, you're spending more, and that drives the U.S. economy.
Why was there so much pessimism?
Yeah, because we saw this really ugly February where we saw only 33,000 jobs that were created. Also, the market jitters back in December when the stock market dropped 20%, and people are thinking, when does that filter in to the real economy and do people stop spending? So there were some concerns, but I would say that basically this jobs report was really necessary to show them to alleviate these recessionary calls out there that it's okay. We're creating 180,000 jobs on average in the first 3 months of this year. Yes, less than 2018, but pretty much in line with 2017. So things are okay at this point. And I would say probably on a wage basis, it's actually better than okay because you're actually making more than 4% according to the Federal Reserve with the aging population and the aging workforce. So older people are leaving. Younger people, actually, that's when you see your largest and fastest wage growth. So actually, real wages are going up faster than 3%, which is very encouraging for spending.
Average unemployment rate for the first 26 months of their presidencies. President Trump, 4.1%. President Obama, 9.5%. Bush, 5.4%. Clinton, 6.4%. Reagan, 8.9%. When you look at it, and the list goes on and on, if you look at those numbers, it looks like President Trump is really doing quite well. And you have to wonder, are people predicting sometimes a pessimistic outlook because they are hopeful of that? Or some of the media saying, you know what, I want this president to not do as well when it comes to economic numbers because that was one of the reasons people voted for for him and has such confidence in him. Is that why? Is this just like
a lot of his wins are being ignored, and he's absolutely right about manufacturing, because when he was on the campaign trail, people were thinking, come on, manufacturing, that's going to China, to these low-cost countries. Manufacturing is booming, and so is construction. Manufacturing jobs saw the longest winning streak in terms of job ads since the 1990s. Last year, over 200,000 manufacturing jobs were created. That's the most in 20 years. Wow. And also, don't forget that we have manufacturing wages also going up as well. So is construction. You have home building at $1.2 million a month. That's twice what it was in 2009.
Yeah. The wage growth is so encouraging.
Yes.
Such an amazing point.
That's
Susan,
right.
thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Your time.
Appreciate it.
The anniversary of D-Day in June. And Tuesday is election day for Israel Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. On Saturday, he vowed to annex Jewish settlements in the West Bank. If he wins re-election for the 5th time, the policy shift is a final push to rally voters in a seemingly tight race. Griff, over to you.
Pete, thanks. As the border crisis reaches a breaking point, President Trump calls for an end to the laws and loopholes creating it.
You catch them, and you release them. A visa lottery, a lottery. Countries, a lottery. You pick out a name. And the asylum program is a scam. How stupid can we be to put up with this?
So how do we get to this point? There is a history here, and here to break it down is the Center for Immigration Studies resident fellow in law and policy, Andrew Arthur. Andrew, good morning to you.
Good morning, Griff. Thank you for having me.
We've heard so much about this. A president, we hear Border Patrol officials have told me that, but let's break this down. First and foremost is catch and release. Tell me what this is and why it matters.
Catch and release is a policy under which aliens who are apprehended entering the United States illegally are quickly freed and allowed to go into the interior of the United States, where they may wait for up to 8 years for their hearings to occur. So basically, they get a free pass into the United States and can stay here indefinitely.
Andrew, what really stuns people is that in the last 3 months, roughly 125,000 migrant family units have been released into the U.S., into the fabric of our communities, and it is because of what we hear, what's called the Flores Settlement. Explain.
The Flores Settlement Agreement was signed by Janet Reno back in 1997. In 2016, the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, interpreting that then 19-year-old a settlement agreement, said no alien minor could be detained by DHS for more than 20 days. Because we don't separate parents from families or from children, that means that the parents get released after 20 days. They know this throughout Guatemala. We've seen reporting in the New York Times, Washington Post about this. So we're seeing primarily men show up with children, knowing that they're going to get released into the United States within 20 days, where they can go and work and make 10 times the wages here that they make back home.
And now also the claiming of asylum, which seems to be the majority of the people coming here. Explain exactly what that is and what they're trying to do.
Most aliens who are apprehended entering illegally along the border are supposed to be subject to something called expedited removal, where we quickly remove them from the United States. But there's an exception called credible fear. If you assert that you want to apply for asylum or you have a fear of being sent back home, then you're put in front of an asylum officer where you have an 89% chance, if a decision is reached, of actually being found to have credible fear. You're placed in removal proceedings, and again, you're likely released into the United States. Back in 2011, about 1% of all people claimed credible fear. Last year, it was 18% of people who claimed credible fear.
Arthur, we hear visa lottery and chain migration. What are those?
Visa Lottery is a program that allows 50,000 aliens from countries from which we don't traditionally receive a large number of aliens to apply for a visa. They don't have to have any ties to the United States. They don't have to have that many skills or that much education. And basically, it's a free pass into the United States for this population of people. Saifullah Saipov, the fellow who's been charged with killing 8 people on a bike path in New York City in Halloween 2017, he got in through the visa lottery. Not a surprise, because a lot of the countries from which terrorists come are major lottery winners.
And chain migration, very quickly?
Chain migration is a process by which family members in the United States can petition for other family members to come to the United States. About 61% of all immigrants to the United States in the last 35 years entered this way. They don't have to have any skills or abilities. They just have to have a family member.
Andrew Arthur, thank you very much for breaking it down. We'll see if Congress gets anything done in changing some of those laws. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Griff.
All right. Well, Democrats want to see President Trump's tax returns, but do the American people even care? I hit the streets to find out.
I'm not so concerned with his tax returns. I'm more concerned with how effective he is in this country.
I think it's very important. Transparency, always talking about it being real.
Not at all.
Really important.
The last 8 presidents have released their tax forms. And we think here that there is a mechanism where these forms could be reviewed in a nonpartisan basis, and then we would have a chance to decide from there what to do with them.
I got elected. They elected me. Now they keep going. I'm under audit. When you're under audit, you don't do it.
Now, that's the chairman, Neil, of the House Ways and Means Committee, the most powerful committee in the House of Representatives, saying that he wants to see those tax returns.
And you actually hit the streets of New York. You got out there to find out how people really feel about this issue. Do they care? Do they not care?
Yeah, I mean, they're still asking.
Yeah. What'd you find?
Well, I don't know. Let's watch. Trump's taxes. How important is it to you to see the president's tax returns?
It's not really important.
Definitely he should show them. It's transparency.
I'm not so concerned with his tax returns. I'm more concerned with how effective he is in this country.
I think it's very important. Transparency is being real.
Not at all.
Really important.
You would like to see it?
Yeah, why not?
Do you care about seeing President Trump's tax returns?
No.
In the House of Representatives, saying that he wants to see those tax returns.
And you actually hit the streets of New York. You got out there to find out how people really feel about this issue. Do they care? Do they not care?
Yeah, I mean, they're still asking.
Yeah. What'd you find?
Well, I don't know. Let's watch. Trump's taxes. How important is it to you to see the president's tax returns?
It's not really important.
Definitely he should show them. It's transparency.
I'm not so concerned with his tax returns. I'm more concerned with how effective he is in this country.
I think it's very important. Transparency, always talking about it being real.
Not at all.
Really important.
You would like to see it?
Yeah, why not?
Do you care about seeing President Trump's tax returns?
No. I want to see my tax return.
Do you think he should show?
Yes, I believe he should show.
At this point, I'm just so sick of all the political game going on right now from both sides of the aisle that I just tune it in and out at this point.
Just out of curiosity, I would want to see, but I think what they're doing is wrong.
There's so much bad about him. It's like not a big story.
It's not constitutionally required.
That's correct.
So,
do you think President Trump should have to show his tax returns?
Absolutely. I'm not really concerned with it. All I know is that he's making America great, and that's all I need.
I'm not like the Democrat Republic. I just be like, if there's nothing to hide, then why wouldn't you be like, here, there you go, here's my returns.
Do you think that's a waste of taxpayer money?
We've wasted enough money already. I think we need to get on to business.
They're wasting time. They're wasting money. Absolutely.
Do any of you care about seeing the president's tax returns?
Your president's tax returns? As
yes.
a Scottish person? No, not particularly, no.
We now give you bagpipes and drum for Trump's taxes. Take it away. President's tax returns, but it's pretty darn awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected you to find. It's kind of a 50-50, and I think I don't think it would necessarily move the needle on how people feel about President Trump because they're really more focused on the issues. But I think when some people just say, you know what, put it out there just to get it off the table so we're not talking about it, that transparency component.
And, you know, that one person, the one woman said, you know, it's not constantly required. That's an important part. By the way, there's a statement we have from President Trump's attorneys, right, because the Ways and Means Committee has subpoenaed the IRS to release to them. Here is this, what the president's lawyers say, quote, if the IRS acquiesces to Chairman Neal's request, it would set a dangerous precedent. Once this Pandora's box is opened, the ensuing tit for tat will do lasting damage to our nation, pointing out, obviously, that we're in.
Then where does it stop? I want to see Nancy Pelosi's tax returns. I want to see everybody's tax returns. No, really. I mean, where does that end?
They'll argue that
She's
those
the
people
Speaker of the House.
They'll argue that those people aren't running for president, and that if you're running for president, it takes on a different.
She's third in line for the presidency.
True. I mean, you can debate this all day long.
I want to see your tax returns.
I want to see Pete Hegseth's tax returns.
Dave, I want to see your tax returns. I want to see everyone's tax returns.
Email
Round
us.
them up.
Email us at friends@foxnews.com and let us know, do you want to see the president's tax returns? How important is
conspiracy, according to the New York Post? A trial witness accused Emma Colonel Isporo, hopefully I didn't mess that up, of helping coordinate construction of the mile-long tunnel El Chapo used in his infamous 2015 Mexican prison escape. She has not been charged with a crime. The mistress of Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos files for divorce 1 day after Bezos finalizes his divorce from his wife of 25 years. Lauren Sanchez reportedly making her split from husband Patrick Whitesell official on Friday. It was revealed in January that Bezos and Sanchez had been dating for months. The two reportedly met through Whitesell. And Joe Biden gets the SNL treatment after a rough couple of weeks.
If you're really going to run in 2020, you have to change the way you interact with women.
Okay, the last thing I ever want to do is offend anyone.
Well, and that's why we've brought in a consultant who handles sensitivity training.
Former cast member Jason Sudeikis portraying Biden taking part in sensitivity training. The likely 2020 presidential candidate has come under fire, accused of inappropriate touching. Those are your headlines.
Yeah.
Sometimes SNL is funny. It's like hit or miss for me.
Well, they should do more on both sides because
Yeah,
there's a lot of funny stuff. There's a lot of material.
Biden is full of material.
More than just
I wonder how their
yes, he is.
I wonder how their ratings were with the games. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Probably
I
rough.
wonder how the weather is, Rick, right
When's the
now.
last time you watched an entire Saturday Night Live?
10 years.
time.
10 years.
I
How
mean,
about you?
this show
I
makes it
used
a little bit harder.
Yeah.
No, but I used to
when you work
watch.
Sunday morning TV.
To your point, I used to watch it, and I don't really.
Yeah, or at least maybe the first half, because
Yeah.
the second half, you're like, come on, something funny at least. All right, here's your temps as you're waking up this morning. Getting better across parts of the Northeast. Still very nice down across the South. Big storms yesterday went across parts of Texas, cut through areas of Louisiana, caused some flooding in areas of Texas. This is kind of what's left of it, but some of these storms in Arkansas this morning are severe. And down across parts of South Texas, seeing some big storms fire there. Also in across parts of the northern plains. Right now we have some rain. Obviously, we've had all that flooding across parts of that area. We have a big storm headed there later on this week. Say by Tuesday through Friday, potentially looking about 1 foot to 1.5 feet of snow in places like Minneapolis. Pete, I said that for you to see if you're paying attention. 1.5 foot of snow in Minneapolis.
Really?
This week. Yeah.
Oof.
There you go. Around Minneapolis.
My parents were hoping to move on.
Yep, nope.
You know, the lawn, things that, nope,
Yeah,
not
but
going to
it's
happen.
beautiful. Snow in Minneapolis
Not
is
yet.
beautiful. It's not like snow in New York. It's not dirty snow. It's
Snow
gorgeous.
in April is never beautiful.
Yeah,
I
never.
like snow in
ever.
Minneapolis.
I'm with you there. No snow.
All right, well, Democrats saying sorry a lot lately.
Sorry, I didn't understand more.
I am not a tribal citizen. I am sorry.
But I'll be much more thoughtful going forward.
David Webb says they're becoming the party of apologies. He joins us coming up next. Should. Welcome back. Couple of quick headlines. Former Auburn football coach Tommy Tuberville is running for Senate. The coach announcing he's running as a Republican for the Alabama seat, once held by Jeff Sessions. If he wins the primary, he will face Democratic Senator Doug Jones. And legendary college basketball coach Bobby Knight makes his first public appearance at Indiana University since his firing nearly 19 years ago. He was seen riding in a golf cart before watching a Hoosiers baseball game from the press box yesterday. Knight was fired in 2000 for an alleged confrontation with a student. He won 11 Big Ten titles. He's a legend at Indiana.
And a friend of the president. We saw him on the campaign trail. All right.